Kansay, I'm Anishinabie. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. A heavy hitter in First Nations politics is facing a civil lawsuit that claims damages for an alleged sexual assault dating back to the 1970s. Former Assembly of First Nations National Chief Phil Fontaine, along with the Saging Education Authority, are both named in a statement of claim that was filed in Winnipeg earlier this year. With more on the civil lawsuit, here's APTN's T.R. Wheatley.
The lawsuit filed on May 16th refers to events that allegedly happened more than 50 years ago. Those allegations have not been tested in court. The lawsuit claims that Fontaine was employed by SEA, the Saging Education Authority, in the 1970s, and while employed there, he arranged and led a school trip where the alleged sexual assault happened. The claim states the trip took place in or around 1970 when the plaintiff was still a child and alleges it was done in coordination with SEA. The plaintiff alleges Fontaine's action caused significant physical, psychological, and emotional harm, including post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and loss of enjoyment of life. Amongst the 17 allegations in the claim, paragraph 5 reads in part, the perpetrator interfered with the plaintiff's normal childhood and future relationships solely for the purpose of his own gratification. It also claims the plaintiff felt unsafe to report what happened. The claim goes on to assert that SEA was negligent in its duty to protect the Saging Anishinabie high school student from abuse and is vicariously liable for Fontaine as a former employee. Key allegations against the authority are that it tried to hide the perpetrator's actions and that it knew or ought to have known that the perpetrator had the propensity to engage in such deviant behaviors. The SEA filed a statement of defense in July that denies all allegations. The authority denies Fontaine was ever an employee and is calling for the suit to be dismissed, going even further, denying having any actual, constructive, or implied knowledge of the alleged abuse. SEA is also seeking court costs. Meanwhile, Fontaine himself has not weighed in on the civil lawsuit. There is no statement of defense in the court file from him, nor has he responded to APTN National News nor any media for comment. The plaintiff is seeking general, special, punitive, and aggravated damages, as well as compensation for past and future health costs, legal costs, and other relief deemed appropriate by the court. No court dates have been set. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The Ontario Provincial Police says there will be a heavy police presence in a First Nation on Manitoulin Island related to a missing persons case. The OPP says it will be conducting searches in the Michiging First Nation for the next 2 days. The public is asked to avoid the area of Riverside Drive and Cross Hill Road in the First Nation and to also avoid the Bidwell Bog northeast from the First Nation. The OPP and the UCCM Anishinabie Police did not say which missing persons case it's related to, but did say they are following up to a related ongoing investigation. Police say there is no risk to the public safety, but they're asking people to avoid areas where police are to ensure police work safely is done and conduct a thorough investigation. Emergency response and K9 units are also assisting on the ground. The investigation continues this week. The Tyendinaga Police Service, along with the Ontario Provincial Police, says they will be executing search warrants this week in relation to illegal cannabis production in Tyendinaga territory. Police are warning the public that there will be a significant police presence to keep the peace and possibly arrest any suspects. They're also predicting there may be a potential for suspects to evade police and that the public should call 911 if they see these individuals and do not approach them. Police say the illegal cannabis production involves non-Indigenous criminal organizations who are exploiting Indigenous rights and lands and have been assisted by a number of community members. Police also say the profits from the illegal operation is in the millions and is only going to go to more crime and those certain members and not more revenue for the First Nation. In an update posted this morning, police recovered stolen property and firearms and halted the unlawful diversion of water from the Bay of Quinte. A number of people were also arrested, including 5 people who are not from the territory. Police closed by saying other Indigenous territories are also dealing with the same issue in their community and that every step is being taken to remove them. The investigation continues this week. The Grand Chief of the Anishinabie APTN Nation says they are providing support to the family of Deborah Anishinabie as police continue to investigate her death. Thunder Bay Police says Anishinabie was murdered in December of 2024 and that a search is now underway at a local landfill in connection with their investigation. Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler says the death and subsequent investigation have taken a tremendous toll on Anishinabie's family, adding Anishinabie's parents have both passed away in the months following her death. Fiddler says while the search for human remains at a landfill is horrific, he is grateful that the family did not have to convince the authorities to begin the search.
The Thunder Bay Police, I think since the disappearance of Deborah in early December have been very respectful in terms of communicating information to the family and the community. And now with the search happening, that they are now being joined by the OPP and our own police service, Anishinabie Police Service, I think is a good example of collaboration and partnerships and solving these horrific crimes.
Grand Chief Fiddler says the case shows that Indigenous women and girls are still in danger since the release of the report into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in 2019. More than 6 years later, Chief Fiddler adds very little has been done on the part of the federal and provincial governments and other organizations to meet the report's recommendations. Protest against Quebec's proposed Bill 97 to modernize the forestry industry continues. The Assembly of First Nations of Quebec and Labrador have united with multiple unions, band councils, and environmental organizations. As APTN Savannah Craig reports, the group says this version of the bill is unacceptable.
Tensions have been high between some First Nations groups and Quebec's forestry industry for months. This is due to Bill 97, a legislation which intends to modernize Quebec's forestry industry. Quebec has called in a new forestry minister to handle the bill, but many First Nations councils and groups are contesting Bill 97 over what they say is lack of consultation with First Nations. This guardian of the territory says he hasn't had any contact with the new minister, Jean-François Simon.
Depuis Mamou, on n'a eu aucun contact, aucun gouvernement, membre du gouvernement.
Dave Petitquay has been staging protests in the form of blockades and sending eviction notices to logging companies in response to Bill 97. Petitquay is part of Mamou First Nation, self-described as a coalition of guardians of the territory and hereditary chiefs that do not represent elected chiefs and councils. A new development in the fight against Bill 97 has been announced. The Assembly of First Nations of Quebec and Labrador, alongside unions representing more than 20,000 forestry workers, environmental groups, and Réseau ZEC, which represents hunting, fishing, and camping zones in Quebec, have put forth a letter denouncing Bill 97. One of the union's signatories says Quebec shouldn't move forward with the bill.
Il est mort et enterré, ce projet de loi-là. Il doit être mort et enterré. On doit reprendre l'exercice avec transparence, parce que ça, c'est le grand défaut de tout le processus qui a eu lieu. Le déficit de transparence.
L'aspect de base, c'est la reconnaissance de nos droits ancestraux et titres.
AFN-QL Regional Chief Francis Vero Paul says while the current forestry regime needs a change, it cannot happen with the current version of Bill 97.
It cannot be made without preserving the biodiversity, our way of living, the sustainability of our forests. And as of now, the Bill 97 is really unbalanced. It just prioritizes the exploitation of the forests.
The need for a change is what's pushing Quebec to modernize the industry.
Vous entendez les gens présentement dire que ça n'a pas d'allure sur le terrain, c'est l'ancien régime forestier. On n'a fait aucun changement à ce régime qui est là depuis des années.
But some want more than just a change to the forestry regime.
C'est l'actuel régime qui devrait être retiré comme il faut. Pas le 87. Le 87, ça vient carrément appiéter nos droits ancestraux qui vient tuer aussi certains exercices qu'on exerce dans des territoires spécifiques.
Petaquay says MAMO was not approached by the AFNQL to counter Bill 97. The forestry minister did not respond to our request for an interview before our deadline. Petaquay says he will continue to exercise his rights.
C'est un exercice de souveraineté ancestrale qu'on a fait.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Montreal.
Police are investigating a series of fires at the constituency office of a Manitoba cabinet minister. It's one of two ongoing investigations into vandalism at two separate NDP MLA offices in Winnipeg. The constituency office of MLA Bernadette Smith is seen here with scorch marks and boarded up windows. Winnipeg Police Service's Major Crimes Unit says they are investigating 4 different fires at the office since the beginning of August. Smith's office and that of MLA Phil Fontaine have both been recently vandalized, according to a provincial spokesperson. Fontaine's office had its windows smashed last weekend. Both ministers are First Nations women, the first to ever sit on Manitoba's ministerial cabinet when the NDP were elected in late 2023. Smith is also Red River Métis. Police have not said if all of the incidents are connected. A provincial spokesperson said both Smith's and Fontaine's constituency offices will remain open and appointments for services can be scheduled through phone and email. A school board in Ontario has been ordered to reverse its decision to not fly the Every Child Matters flag this September. That story when we come back. Welcome back. A Catholic school board in Ontario has been ordered to reverse its flag ban. Earlier this spring, the Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board voted to ban all flags except the Canadian, provincial, territorial, and school flags. The policy meant the survivor's flag would be banned from all 151 Catholic schools across the district. The Survivor Every Child Matters flags are flown every September 30th as a symbol of remembrance to honor residential school survivors and families impacted by the residential school system. In a response to APTN's requests for comment, the Ontario Minister of Education, Paul Calandris, press secretary, said in an email that the minister has directed the supervisor to amend the board's flag policy, allowing the survivor's flag to be raised on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The Dufferin-Peel Catholic School Board has not responded to APTN's request for comment. The Day for Truth and Reconciliation is observed on September the 30th. It's a time of reflection on historical wrongs done at Canada's residential school system, previously run by a number of churches. And as CTV's Harrison Shin tells us, organizers are gearing up all week, including the University of Winnipeg.
Like this left. Let's go. Greetings.
The orange shirt. It's come to symbolize the resilience of Indigenous culture in Canada despite the dark legacy of residential schools. Each year, thousands of shirts are worn, and here, the University of Winnipeg is giving away 500 for free.
It's a way for us to come forward and, take part and join hands in this effort in understanding and reconciling for all the discrimination and institutional horrors that have happened.
So far, responses have been positive.
I think it's awesome that it's free because then every person can have it, especially like students. Sometimes we're not the most wealthy of people and have the excess of money to be buying shirts.
Every 2 years, the shirt is updated with a new design in time for the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which is also Orange Shirt Day.
I chose this year's artist based on, she was a vendor here at a market we had last year. She has amazing artwork, stationery. I really enjoy her traditional Anishinabie floral designs.
Michaela Gilbert's creation features a jingle dress dancer whose dance brings good medicine and a young grass dancer symbolizing a path forward to follow. Gilbert is from the Saging First Nation. She wasn't available for an interview but sent a statement. Gilbert says, in part, this would be a good way to represent our journey of healing and creating a new path for our youth to learn, remember, and to honor the meaning of Orange Shirt Day. She miigwech Grace and U of W for this opportunity. For Red Ed, seeing people wear the shirt is refreshing.
When I see them walking at a distance, it signals to me that they're an ally, that they're a friend.
Harrison Shin, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Beautiful orange shirt design. We now want to tell you about this week's second web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, are you concerned about your privacy when using TikTok? Your answers are yes, no, or I don't use TikTok. You can go to our website at aptnnews.ca to have your say. The poll questions will be listed on the right-hand side of the homepage. Federal Minister of Indigenous Services Canada, Masti is up next to talk about the significance of September 30th. We'll be right back. Walalin for staying with us. St. John's 10 and showers there. Charlottetown 16. Cartwright 12 and sunny. Happy Valley Goose Bay 15. Gaspé 15 and sunny. Montreal smoky and 15. 20 in Ottawa and sunny there. Peterborough 20 and partly cloudy. Wawa 15. Sioux Lookout 20. Churchill 16, Puckatawagan 17, pardon me. Gimli smoky and 15, Winnipeg 15 and sunny. Swift Current 19, Yorkton 15. 11 in Buffalo Narrows, Larange 13 and sunny. Sun's out in Fort McMurray at 14, Peace River 17. Lethbridge 31, Red Deer 23. Vancouver 13, Bellacoola 7 and showers. Rain in Prince Rupert at 12, Prince George 15. Whitehorse 8, Watson Lake 12 and sunny. Sun's out in Fort Simpson at 17, Watee 15. Fort McPherson 4, Colville Lake 10. RV at 8, Chesterfield sunny and 5. And Aglulic +1, Iqaluit +4. The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is now less than 1 week away. Joining us today to talk about September 30th and some other important issues is Minister of Indigenous Services Canada, Masti. Our Dennis Ward recently spoke to her from our APTN studio in Ottawa.
Minister, appreciate you taking some time for us here today as we head into September 30th. What do you think the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation should mean to all Canadians?
Well, yeah, thank you for having me. You know, September 30th is a very important day, not just for Indigenous people, but for non-Indigenous people as well. I think it's a period of time where you have the opportunity to reflect. My hopes and my recommendations to First Nations, to any Indigenous organizations is really create that safe space to give the opportunity for, our supporters, our allies, and those who are looking for information to be able to ask those questions. I think that's a big part of September 30th for me.
We're coming up on the 10th anniversary of the TRC's final report, and there are some indications that reconciliation has stalled, or maybe that this government has moved beyond that. One example would be the clawing back of funding for searches for unmarked graves. Is reconciliation, at least in terms with the federal government, at a bit of a standstill?
I don't know. I think for me, I'm working with the Prime Minister who's probably made one of the boldest statements on reconciliation by having an Indigenous Minister of Indigenous Services Canada. And for me, that is really that first step into where I think we're going with reconciliation, with it shifting into the next space, the action behind reconciliation. That's what I'm looking for. Yes, there's a long period of time, where we had the recommendations from TRC. They are complete up to a certain percentage, but it's an ongoing work. I don't think that reconciliation is on a timeline. It takes the time that it needs for it to be done appropriately.
Right. Moving on to another issue that certainly falls under reconciliation, though. In August, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal ordered Ottawa to get back to the table to negotiate a national agreement on long-term reform for First Nations child welfare. But the government's now legally challenging that order. How come?
For me, truth and reconciliation speaks to trying to ensure that whatever work I bring forward as a minister speaks to the truth of the reality of First Nations, what they're looking for, reconciling, ensuring that what I bring forward really aligns with the needs of the community. I spent all summer doing engagements, speaking to First Nations leadership, really hearing from them what their expectations were from that next step. I think this file is probably one of the more challenging ones on my desk. We've seen it advance, we've seen it step back, we've seen it go onto a new path. For me, I really want to be sure that whatever decision I bring forward as a minister aligns with what I've heard from leadership. That means that it takes the time that it takes to be able to really have the proper process in place in responding to the needs of First Nations children. Whatever we decide and how we decide, we have to ensure that everybody around the table responds to the responsibilities that we have for First Nations children, not just for a short period of time, for the integrity of what those terms of agreements are. So for me, I'm trying to create the space to really respond to that. There is, a process that was applied for in court. We're looking to see what the tribunal is going to respond in terms of the questions that we're asking to clarify. But I'm really trying to keep in line with what I've heard from First Nations, and that's really, them defining what those steps are for child and family services in their community.
Right. A recent APTN news story revealed the confusion amongst Indigenous Services Canada officials about what was eligible for or is eligible for federal funding under Jordan's Principle. If Indigenous Services officials are unsure what qualifies, how can First Nations families have confidence that the government will provide funding for the services their children need?
Jordan's Principle is such a critical program for so many families that are looking to access services. When the operational bulletin came out, it was something that, the government took a decision on. For me, as an Indigenous person, I think when you invite community into that discussion and you ask people to determine what are the parameters of this program, how can we apply it and keep the integrity of Jordan's Principle, how can we protect it? Those are big questions that I've also spent a lot of summer engaging on. There's a lot of change in this process. For me, ensuring that we bring Jordan's Principle to the place that I've heard his father speak to, the integrity of what the program is supposed to address, is really at the forefront of families' questions. In looking at the application and looking at the backlog, I think those two things are really signals that there needs to be a refinement to Jordan's Principle. Needs to align better with the needs that families are expressing in a timelier way. And we need those tools to be able to offer that service to First Nations. That's why I think it's critical to have that discussion and engagement to be sure that the solution that we bring forward to try to correct these processes aligns with their needs and aligns with what they're looking for from Jordan's Principle.
Minister, we'll have to leave it there, but appreciate you always taking some time for us.
Thank you, appreciate that.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Wednesday. We're back again in a few hours for your evening newscast. Please join us then. And we have more news stories at aptnnews.ca posted throughout the day. From all of us at APTN National News, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next day.